Lake Macquarie Mayor John Kilpatrick says last night's vote to censure Councillor Chris Fotev is a first for the council.
It was important that the council take a view. It's council property that had been in the possession of Councillor Fotev and had been misused. We're not really concerned who it may have been, but nonetheless he had the control of it and he should have made sure that it wasn't misused in the way that it was.
The 12-1 vote cast overwhelming disapproval about the alleged actions of the ALP councillor, who was accused of downloading 5,000 pornographic images, some depicting naked children and bestiality, onto his council-supplied laptop computer. The ensuing police investigation cleared Fotev of the allegations, but the Mayor says council remained critical of the police inquiry and plans to question Police Minister Michael Costa about how it was conducted. Councillors also voted to release an independent report over the matter to the public, despite concerns that it could attract a defamation suit.
I think the defamation claim was a little bit of a furphy, I've got to be honest. I think you run that risk all the time, whatever you say. But nonetheless, I believe it's a matter of public record and in the public interest.
The Mayor says the whole incident is a regrettable chapter for the council, which he's hoping will soon be behind them.
When I became the Mayor back in '93, morale was low. We've worked hard to build it up, and we've gone back a step over the last 6 months, which I think is a shame.
Helen Kapelos, NBN News.
Major haul roads and major dumps. Riverview is a new dragline section. It's all out in the game. Leamington Workshop, by the way. Leamington Workshop. The company tells them one thing and they believe it. They believe what the company tells them is true. Our joint at the moment. Of course, there's all those other issues where it's out. We've had to go and do special meetings, be very blunt, and just tell them where it's at. And that's caused a bit of conflict within on their reports. But certainly at the washeries and in engineering, it's different than production. Production put it on, and to a certain extent, got in their truck and they were gone, people. And I think the real Rio people know what it's all about, the same as us. The ones that have been around for a long period of time.
Andrew Cribb feels like he's gone 10 rounds with Mike Tyson, and the comparison isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. The toothy opponent in this case was a 3-metre tiger shark.
I was paddling back out at the back of the break and just out of the left and just got hit by a shark. It's come out from nowhere and just grabbed me.
The council lifeguard at 1 Mile Beach north of Newcastle was surfing the notorious shark haven of Fingal Spit early yesterday evening when the attack occurred. The teeth marks on his board, testament to how lucky he was.
Just dragged me under and all I knew was to open my eyes and start kicking it, you know. just kept on coming and coming, just kicking it the whole time. There's so much whitewater around me, I was saying, oh, goodbye everyone, you know, just thought I was gone, but I was just lucky to get out of it without a scratch on me, you know.
Witnesses, including best mate Reece Courtney, couldn't believe their eyes.
Saw it lunge at him initially, and after that he just went under the water for about 10-15 seconds. Everyone else around was just watching, just stunned.
For the length of time he was underwater, I thought he wasn't going to come back up.
For Dean Shaw, it was also a very close call.
It's a big chance it could have been me, yeah. There was, half a dozen of us out there, but me being so close to where he was, I probably was the next one on the menu.
Tiger sharks are known for their aggressive temperament and are prevalent in New South Wales waters this time of year. Amazingly, the 20-year-old is keen to get back in the water. That's when he's not telling his amazing story of survival. And it seems his old nickname of Tiger will now stick forever. Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
A relative made the shocking discovery just after 7:30 last night. Inside the blacksmith's home were the bodies of 29-year-old Lee Woolcott and her 38-year-old de facto husband, Eddie Jansen. The tragic scenario, the result of a murder-suicide.
Now, we don't believe there's anything suspicious in that. We do believe it's as a result of a domestic dispute, and our inquiries are heading down that way, and we're just trying to tie it all up with interviews with witnesses and anyone else that may have some information for us.
While the exact circumstances are still unknown, it's believed the woman had gone to the home with the intention of ending the 10-year relationship while she left her young daughter in the care of relatives. Police say it appears Mr Jansen shot his de facto wife in the bedroom while she was packing up her belongings before turning the gun on himself. Today, neighbours said there was no sign of trouble between the pair, who had always gone about their business quietly.
They were lovely neighbours. I couldn't have wished for better neighbours. There was no riff-raff about them. They were just genuine, lovely neighbours.
They say everyone's thoughts are now with the couple's 4-year-old daughter.
She's the one that our heart's got to go out for now, the little girl. Yeah.
Helen Kapalos, NBN News.
They're often maligned as being mosquito-infested and a bit on the nose, but wetlands and the important role they play in the environment was recognised today. World Wetlands Day marks the 31st anniversary of the Ramsar Convention, which was signed in Iran, highlighting the need to preserve the ecosystems.
They're probably one of the most productive ecosystems, really diverse, and they're also, especially in Australia where it's such a dry continent, the wetlands are incredibly important when we go into a dry season.
Members of the public learned more about wetlands today in a series of seminars and field trips. At Pambalong, just outside of Newcastle, people were shown the importance of maintaining a wetland. Organisers hope the knowledge will empower them to help preserve such important ecosystems in their own areas. And it seems the message is already getting across.
I've seen some new dams going in around the Cessnock area where they've got these great shapes with islands in the middle and obviously designed to not only be used as water for stock or for irrigation, but also to be used as wetlands which are providing wildlife values.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
After 23 years, I think, you've got to go sometime. And I'll be 76 this week, and I'm one of the younger ones.
A rising star of the go-kart circuit, it's not known if 23-year-old Nicole Franks from Redhead will ever regain consciousness.
We're just devastated as the karting community in Newcastle.
Nicole had been competing in the final of the Wollongong City Kart Prix. She was in third position and trying to overtake her competitors just before the finish line when it appears her vehicle and another clipped, sending her kart crashing into a plastic barrier. A special needs teacher on the Central Coast, Nicole had been competing since 12 years of age and was one of the state's top female racers.
We don't have female races or male races, they all race together, and she was certainly something to be contended with for the boys, that's for sure.
Nicole's family owns a go-kart shop at Cardiff. They are tonight by her side at Wollongong Hospital. There were an unusually high number of accidents during the competition. Even before it began, some racers had criticised the use of plastic barricades because small gaps at the base caused a sudden stop in the event of a collision, which is what happened to Nicole. It's an issue police will consider in their investigation. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News. A rising star of the go-kart circuit, it's not known if 23-year-old Nicole Franks from Redhead will ever regain consciousness.
We're just devastated as the karting community in Newcastle.
Nicole had been competing in the final of the Wollongong City Kart Prix. She was in third position and trying to overtake her competitors approaching the finish line when, it appears, her kart clipped another, sending her crashing into a plastic barrier.
At this stage, our investigations are continuing and we'll know more in the future.
A teacher on the Central Coast, Nicole had been competing since 12 years of age and was one of the state's top female racers.
We don't have female races or male races, they all race together, and she was certainly something to be contended with for the boys, that's for sure.
Very caring, that's why she's a special needs teacher, because she loves kids and she's a primary school special needs teacher.
Nicole's family owns a go-kart shop at Cardiff and are tonight by her side at Wollongong Hospital. Even before it began, some racers had criticised the use of plastic barricades because small gaps at the base cause a sudden stop in the event of a collision, which is what happened to Nicole. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Meantime, in Barnsley, the heavy rain has caused Flaggy Creek to break its banks. A reserve bordering the creek is totally underwater and nearby homes have become islands. Residents from this house on Codrington Street were preparing for the worst, removing a lot of their furniture. Floodwater stopped just in time, lapping at the floorboards. The Barnsley Weir is also flooded, with the water almost reaching the 2-metre mark. This garage in the Newcastle suburb of Merriweather didn't stand a chance against the force of this fence, the wet weather loosening the foundations and sending it toppling. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
"51-year-old Ian Bennett faced the media this afternoon to reveal one of the worst-kept secrets in rugby league circles.
I am sure that it does not come as a shock to any of you in this room to hear that I am today announcing my resignation as Chief Executive Officer of the Newcastle Knights.
Mr Bennett insisted the decision to end his tenure with the club was his own and his resignation wasn't forced by the board. Instead, he said 7 years of work-related pressure had taken its toll and he now wants to take some time out to assess his future. The club expects to announce Mr Bennett's successor before the beginning of the NRL season. It's advertising nationally for the position. However, there's speculation former captains Mark Sargent and Tony Butterfield are frontrunners for the job.
It would be an advantage for somebody who comes from the area and who has an interest in or history of being involved in the game.
Mr Bennett signed on as CEO in 1995 during the height of the Super League war. He says that year and 1997 were his toughest at the helm, while the one that just passed was easily the most memorable.
2001 I think was a great year. It was the club was probably at its peak as far as organised, professionally run, in my opinion anyway, and capping it off with a great premiership.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
The contrast to the January bushfires was nowhere more evident than at Nabiac near Taree. Rural Fire Service volunteers among those sandbagging after the local creek broke its banks and flowed into the main street. For some deluged shop owners, though, it was a case of deja vu, one in particular forced to cope again after being flooded back in the year 2000.
It's just totally wiped us out. It's just gone through our motors and everything. At the moment we've got everything in the cool room, but we can't open the door, so we don't know what's happening in there. Otherwise if we open it, it'll just flood.
It was hard going on the Pacific Highway at times, while the treacherous conditions are thought to be behind an accident at Myuna Bay south of Newcastle. A utility spun on Main Road 217, the tray crashing into the front of a Ford Econo van, killing its 46-year-old driver.
And these conditions aren't likely to go away for the next couple of days. So I would urge motorists to exercise some caution when they're driving on these wet roads, because it might not only be your life that you're saving, but someone else's.
Elsewhere in the Hunter, swollen creeks isolated communities and in some cases reduced houses to islands. A garage in the suburb of Merriweather fell victim to the big wet, while a woman and her 2 children amazingly escaped uninjured earlier tonight at Adamstown after a tree toppled onto their car. Also presumably thanking their lucky stars, some students at schools like Rutherford High who had their classes cancelled.
3 classrooms have quite significant water damage and a number of the walkways are leaking, so we thought it best in terms of student welfare that if with parents' approval that they kept their students home today.
And the rain didn't always cause problems, going some way towards easing water shortages in the Hastings and also bringing small but welcome relief for crop and cattle farmers. Colin Baldwin, NBN News, Late Edition.
Last night's protest meeting was called to address issues about the proposed Port Stephens motorplex. Catering for motorsports up to a national level, it's something the Newcastle MG Car Club has been wanting for more than 25 years. but it may have to wait a little longer. The Hunter Water Corporation has called for the development application to be withdrawn until an environmental impact statement is carried out on the water and sewage treatment systems.
It should have been done in the first place. Really, anybody who's developing a proposition such as this or proposing a proposition in a drinking water catchment area should have provided an environmental impact study.
The local action group will now use the extra time to raise awareness of its concerns.
They're going to have horrendous noise, they're going to have to put up with people speeding up and down local roads, so traffic, water contamination.
But the MG Car Club says it's hoping the EIS will put residents' fears to rest and adds the community stands to gain many economic and social benefits from the $15 million development.
After 25 years, we are very confident that the development will go through because of all the positives that will come from it.
It's an amalgamation of the country's frontline defence aircraft. Australia's former tactical fighter and strike reconnaissance groups have merged to form the new Air Combat Group, the move designed to set up our future fighting power.
But it also actually gets us aligned to the way we would prefer to fight. The F-111 and the F-18 weapon system actually complement themselves pretty well, so it's a pretty smart way to go.
The Air Combat Group incorporates all of the Air Force's FA-18 Hornets, PC-9s and F-111s, all used to protect Australia if the need arises.
Our job is to control what's going on in the airspace and conduct precision strike.
The group involves more than 2,000 personnel and 145 aircraft. While units will be based in the Northern Territory, Queensland and Western Australia, the main headquarters is at Williamtown.
Quite simply, Williamtown's the centre of gravity for the group. The majority of the units are located here at Williamtown, so it did actually make sense.
The group has been in training since last month and will take pride of place in a parade tonight. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Taking on English champs Bradford in atrocious conditions could well have been disastrous injury-wise for the Knights, but those who travelled to England pulled through the match unscathed. The team returned to training today after a couple of days' rest. One player sure to learn from the overseas experience is Kurt Gidley, who describes it as the biggest game of his life.
Yeah, it was a pretty important game, but especially following up from the grand final. So I'd say so far, yeah. Just over there, everything was combined. Like it was like freezing cold, windy, and also raining. So the conditions were terrible.
The only real injury concerns for the Knights at this stage are still Ben Kennedy, Tamana Tahu and Adam McDougall. All three trained today and are expected to be fit towards the beginning of the NRL season. For Kurt Gidley, that means more chances to impress his coach.
Well, there's a couple of trials coming up, one against Cronulla up at Port, so I want to have a good performance up there and just probably get a couple more first grade games this year.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News. The who's who of Australian Rugby League and some lucky fans attended the NRL Country Carnival launch in Cessnock today. Among the big announcements, confirmation that locals will get to see their favourite sons, Andrew Johns and Bill Peden, play against the Penrith Panthers next month.
Cessnock's a big rugby league town and everyone loves the game, so to get a top-line game up here is a great thing, and it's just a bonus that Andrew and I are from Cessnock, and we're very proud to play at home.
It's all part of an initiative to take the game to country areas in Queensland and New South Wales, including cities like Tamworth.
Hopefully they'll get right behind it, and hopefully there's a lot of Eagles supporters and Roosters supporters up there, and hopefully we'll get a full house there at Scully Park.
But the Country Carnival wasn't the only thing launched. The highly successful NRL Road Train will hit the highways again this year, showcasing the biggest prizes the game has to offer. It'll travel through Queensland, Northern Victoria and Melbourne, as well as making the journey across the Tasman to New Zealand.
It's a real initiative to take the game to the bush, to the people in the bush. Last year we had 65,000 people go through the road train, and this year we're anticipating 250,000.
Among the exciting new features this year, something which allows wannabe Ray Warrens to try their luck. Colin Robinson, NBN News.
In front of a 7,000-strong crowd, Newcastle's hopes of a hometown win started to look shaky just 7 minutes in when Adelaide scored one straight out of the textbook. In response, Newcastle's Asala Massey tried to use his head but couldn't connect. Goalie Daniel Beltrame did his best to stop the Adelaide attack, and then came the equaliser. Newcastle continued the offensive, and after the break, Milan Blagojevic got one through from a free kick, only to have it disallowed, with the ref calling McBreen offside. But the controversy was later forgotten as Robbie Middleby sealed the game for United.
From the 3rd of March, the number of bus routes will be cut from 59 to 24.
What it means is that the existing or the new route numbers will be operating more trips during the day and the night.
Some passengers faced with less services, others more.
There will be less buses on some routes, but there will be more buses on other routes.
But unions aren't happy.
It's going to be a big con. There's going to be some areas, as I say, Macquarie Hills for argument's sake, that can currently get to Charlestown on one route, can't do that anymore. But the TAFE at Glendale currently has 4 or 5 services running past it. It's getting cut back to 1.
George Blackmore from the Pensioners Advisory Service says elderly people who depend upon buses will be greatly inconvenienced by the cuts, and many will be forced to walk long distances to different stops.
Most of these people with all these bright ideas and that are still riding around in cars will not alter their system at all. You don't have people, elderly people, walking extra long distances to catch a bus service in all types of weather.
There'll be 16 less buses and 20 drivers will be offered voluntary redundancies, many supporting the restructure.
As far as I'm concerned, it is a change for the better. There's a couple of servers which have been requested and are now going to go through.
Transport Minister Carl Scully requested the overhaul last year, after the company, which receives government subsidies, started incurring more than $10 million a year losses. A map of the new routes and timetables is available from ticket agencies or depots. People can also phone an info line on 131500. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
With anti-theft devices such as immobilisers, engine immobilisers, club locks or car alarms.
For more than 150 years, circuses have provided Australians with the chance to see exotic animals up close. But from now on, that'll be difficult to do in Lake Macquarie, with councillors voting last night to ban circuses from setting up on council-controlled land.
There's always been a concern about the way the animals are kept and maintained, and the council took the view that it was probably humane, there was a safety issue, and they decided to take that stand.
The fight to limit circuses has been led by animal groups like the RSPCA.
We get complaints about circuses in Sydney and locally as well. So it's just something that it's very hard for us to monitor. The people don't always have the animal's best interest in mind, so it was something that we were just trying to sort out once and for all.
Similar decisions have been made by more than 20 other councils nationally, but it doesn't concern the Circus Federation. It says circuses will simply bypass such areas.
Eyebrows rise a little bit when Shire councils set themselves up as arbiters for family entertainment.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
They look fun, and they obviously are. And the theory is simple.
Well, basically they're just an aluminium hull with they've got a plastic coating on the bottom to make them slip across the ground, and as you can see, just the big propeller there to push them along, and a couple of rudders to steer them.
Built at Saltash by John and Paul Williams, the airboats are suited to any type of terrain close to water.
They go on swamp, they go on grass like you can see behind us, and basically go anywhere.
The father and son team have been building the boats to suit individual buyers for 9 years. But the road to success wasn't always serious.
Started off with a little toy boat basically and sort of progressed from there. So sort of one thing led to another, and now we're sort of up and running, we've got everything sorted out and we're building professionally like this.
In fact, to a standard that's seen them break into the export market.
Well, they'll be going around swamp lands and checking on like oil rigs and stuff like that in the swamps.
And the future looks promising.
When these two boats get delivered, hopefully we've got another two to follow straight up. So there'll be another two, and the Chinese are looking at buying two as well. So that's only probably next month we should have 4 more boats to build.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Lottie was just a newlywed when she and late husband Joe set up Stam's news agency in 1939 in Swansea's main street.
The people are very good and friendly, and we've really enjoyed and had a wonderful life here.
And only a matter of years later, her sons Mac and John were roped into the family business as newspaper boys.
I worked it out the other day, about 9 million papers I've thrown over in the 43 years I've been working here.
Between the three of them, they've seen more than a headline or two, and they've witnessed some changes in the industry.
Well, we had morning papers and night papers years ago, then TV came along and night papers kind of faded off.
They've also seen changes in Swansea itself, a long way from being the highly sought-after location it is today.
There are lots of bag houses, because that was just the end of the Depression.
Years ago, people come down here to work in the coal mines and they just built kind of shacks and then built them up, and then years later they converted them all into houses.
And the Stams say one of the greatest things they'll miss about the news agency is the customers.
I'll miss all the people that I see, running around and all that sort of thing, and having a yarn with them all.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
As a class international field continued to arrive today, the world number 1 was praising the course before she had even hit a ball.
It looks nice, I haven't been on it yet.
Not known for her dedication away from competition, Laura Davies will tee off as defending champion, along with an attitude that would make any weekend hacker envious.
I very rarely have a practice round. She doesn't believe him, she doesn't even. It's too slow, simple as that. It just takes too long, and I'd rather have fun with my prime team and get to know a course under a little bit more competitive circumstances rather than throwing golf balls over the greens and chipping and putting on. That's never been my thing, so I'll see it today for the first time.
The in-form Rachel Teskey has been billed as one of the biggest threats for the season opener, but the former Gloucester girl refuses to be drawn into any pre-match hype.
I wouldn't say that it's between me and Laura or anybody. It's going to be everybody's going to have a great chance to be in the hunt.
In her own backyard, Horizon's own touring pro Cherie Burns is also a contender, and the shy 26-year-old is looking forward to a home course advantage.
I know a lot of people are coming out to watch. It's going to be completely new to me, but they'll be cheering me on, so I'll have a good time.
The 54-hole event starts tomorrow. Stephen Mount, NBN News.
The John Hunter Hospital's temporary emergency department was a hive of activity today. After months of planning and preparation, staff moved the entire department, complete with patients, into a new building.
The transfer of services has gone very well. At this stage, we are now treating patients in the new emergency department.
Possible industrial action by nurses unhappy with staffing levels had threatened to disrupt the changeover. But that has been resolved after urgent talks between Hunter Health and the union.
We're able to agree to a resolution with the nurses prior to the transfer of services, We've agreed to a temporary increase in staff for a 1 month period, and then we will jointly review the staffing levels after that.
Tenders for the construction of the new permanent emergency department are still being finalised. But when complete, it will not only be double the size, but also have new facilities.
We're also moving X-ray facilities to within the department. Many of the people who attend our emergency department require X-rays, and to have X-ray facilities within the department will enable them to be cared for much more efficiently.
The construction will take 12 months to complete. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
A cloud of uncertainty hung over some of the team at today's training, with D-Day set down for tomorrow. Of the 13 off contract, at least half are expected to be let go. Understandably, it's having an impact on player preparations for this weekend's crucial match against Sydney Olympic.
Oh yeah, it definitely is. Obviously, in the back of your mind, you obviously want to get things tied up and get things sorted out, but that's why obviously we're professional players and we've got to make sure that we prepare ourselves for each game.
Among the players hoping to re-sign with United, Mark Wilson, Asala Massey, Joe Sharippa and the informed Peter Zakenis.
So you just got to be professional about it. It's part and parcel of the game. You just got to go on with it, and you got a job to do basically. I still got a contract for the rest of this season, so it's basically play your best, and if you get a contract, well and good.
The midfielder has cemented his spot in the team since he replaced Mark Wilson, who hasn't played since being rested. But he says it's important for the side to not get caught up in off-the-field matters.
We just try to keep it low key and just get on with it. The last thing we want is to drop where we are at the moment, second spot, and blow a semi-final spot. So we've got to think seriously about it and just keep it aside and keep going what we're doing.
Cullen Robinson, NBN News.
Elmer has produced electric light globes and fluorescent tubes at the Clyde Street factory for 70 years. There has been speculation for around a decade on the future of the nation's last lamp producer. Today, the death knell sounded.
This company will close in 2 months' time on the 24th of April this year.
Employees weren't required to work their shift after being told of the decision. Management facing the media to explain financial losses, a decline in market share, cheap imports and a growth in demand for new energy-efficient lighting prompted the unanimous board decision to switch off the plant. Directors decided against a furnace upgrade or selling the company as a going concern. Workers and management had taken Elmer as far as they could.
For longer than would reasonably have been expected if you really look at the level of competition we have and the economies of scale we have to compete against.
The company will repay employee loyalty by helping them try and find a new job. The Australian Workers' Union has responded by calling local civic and political leaders together next Monday to discuss the region's latest jobs blow. Glass will continue to be drawn from the furnace until April 24, but the future for the factory and site has already been determined. Both are to be sold to fund termination payments and entitlements for the Elmer workforce. Gary Blair, NBN News.
Better for the run against the Sharks at the weekend, coach Michael Hagan is now focused on getting things right in the club's last trial before the season proper begins.
We'd like to run with our best team nearly this weekend, barring injury, so anyone that's in any doubt, we wouldn't consider them for the game.
Tamana Tahu was close to playing at Port Macquarie and is thought to be a certain starter against Penrith. Andrew John's appearance will be confirmed later in the week. He's still niggled by a leg muscle problem, but is desperate to return to where his career all began, at Cessnock.
Andrew, he's dying to play this weekend for that reason, and I think Billy Peden and Mark Hughes that hail from that neck of the woods. So, I mean, we'll have our best team that we can muster.
Hagan will be happy if Adam McDougall and Ben Kennedy can be fit in time for the season's first game, but is preparing to be without the pair.
We need to come up with a back rower and probably a winger for the starting team, so they're probably two positions that are being considered, and then the bench, I guess, is the four guys on the bench to look at the makeup of that.
It was a definite break from the usual routine for these Year 10 students. They were encouraged to let go of their fears by smashing plates. It's all part of a positive lifestyle program designed to improve students' life skills and teach them more about themselves.
I mean, there's more to life than just school, and that's what we're learning. We're learning about, relationship building, how to just, cope with life.
From problem-solving activities to motivational speakers, each part of the program caters to the needs of each year group.
By the time they're in Year 11 and Year 12, they're addressing the sorts of things that young adults are concerned about, relationships in particular, and drugs and sex.
Due to a strong response from staff and students, the program at Belmont High School has been running for 9 years. And it could be a sign of things to come in other schools as changes to the school syllabus gradually take shape, equipping students with more than just academic skills.
The old reading, writing and arithmetic's pretty much out the window now because you just won't get students to pay attention, and students just won't be interested in that sort of stuff anymore. They need a sort of a 3D environment.
Lyndall Derrick, NBN News. Meet Tranzilla, the fiery car-crushing dinosaur that's made Spears Point her temporary home. It's just one of the draw cards at this weekend's Hunter Valley Super Show, along with wheel-standing Bronco trucks and free admission.
You can come back 3, 4, 5, 6, 10 times over 3 days if they wish, and they won't have to pay 1 cent.
On the other hand, the Newcastle show, which is celebrating its centenary, also has its share of rides such as the Claw, as well as traditional craft and agricultural displays.
We have cattle competitions, we have dressage, we have the horse jumps.
But in a bid to lure even more thrill seekers to the Super Show, the Showman's Guild president Lou Osborne was strapped onto the bonnet of a car to perform this fiery stunt. But organisers of the Newcastle show weren't feeling the heat.
You know, a human inferno or whatever it is, that's just going to go run around. I don't think it'll excite too many people.
Meanwhile, the Newcastle show's photographic exhibition has attracted entries from around the world. There's also plenty of impressive talent which is already being judged in the arts sections. And judging of a different kind took place last night for entrants in the Miss Showgirl competition. Each girl is assessed on her personality, rural knowledge and deportment, with the winner announced on Friday night. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
Stefan Weir, Emma McNaughton and Taylor Muxlow were back home this afternoon, all satisfied having returned from the Australian Downhill Mountain Bike Championships with medals.
I raced in the elite women's downhill national titles on the weekend and I placed third.
I did the elite downhill down in Thredbo there and I come up champion.
In the over 45 Masters division in the downhill mountain biking.
Training in his own backyard, the Masters gold medalist has an accent you'd expect to hear on the Austrian ski slopes. But he says there's one simple method to learning the physics of mountain bike riding.
You learn by your mistakes and then you just learn to put the brakes on.
Last weekend's championships were held at Thredbo, and the riders all agree that the Australian competition is not far behind the toughest in the world.
Against world courses, it's probably a little bit easier than World Cup courses because only the elite can actually ride World Cups. But no, Thredbo course is great.
But no rest for the elite. This year holds a full schedule of both local and international competition.
Next week I leave for the US. I'm there for about 1 month. And I'll come home for 2 or 3 weeks and then I go back for 5 months and do the whole circuit over there.
And then there's the sacrifices.
I actually put off uni, going to uni, so I could give this a go and travel overseas and do some races and see how it goes over there.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Only a matter of years ago, it seems the region had an abundance of apprentice metal workers. Now they're in short supply. The BHP Welfare Trust is aiming to boost the numbers by training 24 young men.
Because I've only finished year 10 and most apprenticeships you need year 12. So this will give me a bit of a boost.
Once they've completed 15 weeks of training, the Hunter Valley Training Company guarantees it will find them an apprenticeship. For 16-year-old Scott Bennett, it means he's a step closer to becoming a fitter.
Oh, well, it'll let me see what I've got to do to gain my trade, all the skills, learn the skills for later on.
Meanwhile, Curry TAFE student Cheryl Allen is already on the way to achieving her career goal by winning the New South Wales Student Florist of the Year. For Cheryl, the decision to become a florist came after nearly 20 years in the workforce.
I just felt like I wasn't getting anywhere, just had to do something for me, something that I like doing instead of what everyone else wanted me to do, sort of thing.
And while the award will help boost her business at Boolaroo, Cheryl says she simply enjoys her new passion, lighting up people's lives every day. Lyndall Derrick, NBN News.
I'm retiring, and the staff have been moved into different places.
Jamie Pittman is the latest Hunter athlete to earn state selection. The talented amateur fought his way into the state boxing team after a year off, having missed selection for the 2000 Olympics.
Trained so long, and I mean there was so much pressure on me, and then I was confident to make it, and then to get let down like that, and it was a big thing. And I had a year off, and I've come back fresher than ever.
With 8 wins in the last 6 months, the 20-year-old now heads to Melbourne for the Commonwealth selection trials, along with a swag of confidence.
I'm getting stronger. I can feel I'm getting stronger in every fight and improving in every fight. And I've watched videos and I feel like I'm getting stronger, and in 2 years, hopefully I'll be at my peak.
Meantime, Chad Hollywood Bennett has his first international fight tomorrow night at the Mayfield Ex-Services Club. His opponent is New Zealand's Peter Tovio, and all going well, Bennett has his sights set on bigger things.
I've been told if I win tomorrow night, I'll get a shot at the state title, maybe next fight or the fight after. So I'm hoping to do well tomorrow night.
And he's living up to his name.
You're in the wrong game if you're not confident, but yeah, I'm quietly confident that I can do well. As long as I do my best, I'll be happy with that.
Stephen Mount, NBN News.
Belmont Swansea has long been one of the leading regional-based surf lifesaving clubs, so it seemed only right it should host the New South Wales Championships. The venue has proved popular too, with numbers the best for some years, reflecting the host club's effort to ensure its success.
Outstanding. There's no doubt the job that Swansea Belmont people have done has been excellent.
Cronulla is the one to beat, the Glamour Club gunning for its 5th consecutive crown. But rival Sydney club Wanda will make it tough for the Sharks, while the host club can never be ruled out either. The People's Champion Courage Under Fire is just one of Australasia's leading trotters that will be in Newcastle next week for heats of the country's greatest harness race, the Inter-Dominion. His shoes worn in the final of the great race last year have already found a home at Newcastle, but it's Tuesday night his work will be cut out for him.
He won the last 2 Newcastle miles, and the people just love him, so we think he's going to be one of the crowd favourites here on Tuesday night.